Sign your name, Victoria. I don't want to spend another minute pretending this marriage still matters. The words landed harder than the divorce papers sitting between them. Victoria Bennett stared across the glass conference table at the man she had loved for 7 years, trying to understand how someone who once promised forever could now speak about ending their marriage like he was canceling a business contract. Alexander Whitmore did not look angry. He did not look sad. That almost hurt more. He looked certain. The kind of certainty that came from a man who believed he had already won. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan law office, the city moved like nothing had changed. Cars filled the streets below. People rushed to meetings. Coffee cups disappeared into crowded sidewalks. But inside that quiet room, Victoria felt like the entire world had stopped. "Alex," she said softly, her fingers resting on the edge of the document, "are you really sure this is what you want?" For a moment, something flickered in his expression, something almost human, but it disappeared quickly. "Victoria, we both know this hasn't been working for a long time." He leaned back in his chair, wearing the same confidence that had made investors trust him and employees follow him. "I need a different life now. Different life." Those 3 words stayed in her mind, because she knew what he really meant. A different image, a different circle, a different woman beside him at corporate dinners and charity events. Victoria looked down at the divorce papers again. Her name was already printed at the bottom, waiting for her signature. 7 years of memories reduced to a few pages of legal language. 7 years of supporting him when nobody knew his name. 7 years of believing that love meant standing beside someone before the world recognized them. She remembered the small apartment they shared when Alex was still building his first company. The nights when he came home exhausted after working 18-hour days. The moments when he doubted himself and wondered if he would ever succeed. She was there. She believed in him when nobody else did. "Do you remember when you told me we were a team?" Victoria asked. Alex looked away for a second. "That was a different time." Different time. Another phrase that sounded simple, but carried years of memories behind it. Victoria slowly nodded. She finally understood something painful. Alex was not leaving because their marriage had failed. He was leaving because he had forgotten who stood beside him before he became the man everyone admired. "You know what hurts the most?" she whispered. "It's not that you want to leave." Alex looked at her. "It's that you truly believe I was the person holding you back." Silence filled the room. The attorney sitting nearby lowered his eyes, giving them a moment of privacy. Alex reached for the pen. "Victoria, I hope you find happiness." It sounded polite, almost kind, but somehow that made it worse. Because kindness from someone who had already decided to walk away felt colder than anger. He signed his name. Alexander Whitmore. CEO. Founder. The man who believed he was choosing his future. Victoria watched the ink dry on the page. Then she picked up the pen. Her hand did not shake. Not because she was not hurting, but because after today, she knew she could no longer fight for someone who had already stopped choosing her. She signed her name beneath his. Victoria Bennett. The attorney collected the papers quietly. "The divorce will be finalized within 30 days. Alex stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. "I hope you take care of yourself." Victoria looked at him one last time. "I will." He walked toward the door without looking back. He never saw the way she closed her eyes after he left. He never saw the tears she refused to let fall in front of him. And he never knew the truth about the woman whose name he had just signed away. Because Victoria Bennett was not the ordinary wife he thought he was leaving behind. She was the last heir to one of America's most powerful private fortunes. And the day Alex Whitmore signed those divorce papers was the day he unknowingly walked away from the one person who could have changed everything. 3 years earlier, before the glass towers, the luxury cars, and the endless business meetings, Alexander Whitmore was just a man with a dream and a company that barely had enough money to survive. The world saw the successful CEO he became. But Victoria Bennett remembered the man who used to sit on their old apartment floor, staring at his laptop, wondering if his idea would ever become something real. What if this never works? Alex had asked her one night, his voice tired after another long day. Victoria had sat beside him and smiled. Then we figure it out together. That was who she had been. Not a woman chasing a powerful man. Not someone impressed by a title or a bank account. She was the person who believed in him before anyone else knew his name. When they first met, Alex was ambitious but uncertain. He had a vision for Whitmore Technologies, but he did not have the connections, investors, or reputation to make people listen. Victoria saw something in him that even he could not see in himself. She helped him prepare presentations. She listened to every idea. She celebrated every small victory. When his first major investor rejected him, she was the one who stayed awake with him until sunrise, reminding him that one failure did not define his future. "You are not your worst day, Alex," she told him. "You are the person who keeps going after it." Those words stayed with him. At least, they used to. As the years passed, the small company grew into a technology empire. Alex moved from working at a tiny desk in their apartment to leading meetings on the top floors of Manhattan skyscrapers. His name appeared in business magazines. Investors wanted his attention. People who once ignored him now wanted to be in the same room with him. Victoria was proud of him. She truly was. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Success slowly became the only thing Alex could see. The simple dinners they used to love became business events. Quiet weekends became networking trips. Conversations about their future became conversations about company growth. "You are always thinking about work," Victoria once told him during dinner at their favorite little restaurant. Alex looked up from his phone. "Because work is what built this life." Victoria gently placed her fork down. "No, Alex. We built this life." He did not answer. That silence stayed with her longer than any argument could have. Over time, Victoria noticed he started introducing her differently. In the beginning, he proudly said, "This is my wife, Victoria." Later, at business events, it became, "This is Victoria." Like removing the word wife made her easier to forget. What Alex never understood was that Victoria never needed his success. She had her own identity, her own history, and a future that existed long before she met him. But she kept one part of herself hidden. Not because she wanted to deceive him, because she wanted something real. Victoria wanted to know that if everything disappeared, if the money, status, and connections were gone, Alex would still choose her. She never told him about the Bennett family legacy. She never mentioned the fortune waiting for her. She never revealed that her quiet life was a choice, not a limitation. To Alex, she was simply Victoria, his wife, the woman who stood beside him. But slowly, he began treating her like someone who stood behind him. And that was the mistake he would one day regret the most. Because the woman he thought had nothing to offer was the same woman who had given him everything when he had nothing at all. After leaving the law office, Victoria Bennett did not go home and fall apart. She did not call friends to explain what happened. She did not post anything online or try to prove her side of the story. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to sit in silence and listen to what she truly felt. The apartment that once held so many memories suddenly felt different. The same walls where she and Alex celebrated their first big business when now reminded her of how much she had changed just to keep their marriage together. She walked into the closet and noticed something she had ignored for a long time. Most of the space belonged to Alex. His suits, his designer shoes, his awards, his company events. Her side was smaller, quieter, almost invisible. Victoria smiled sadly as she ran her fingers across the old photo sitting on the shelf. It was taken years ago, before the company became famous, before Alex started measuring everything by success. In the picture, they were standing outside their first apartment. Alex was holding a cheap coffee cup, and Victoria was laughing at something he said. They looked happy because they were happy. They did not have much, but they had each other. "When did we stop being enough?" she whispered to the empty room. The question stayed with her. But deep down, she already knew the answer. Alex did not suddenly become a different person overnight. It happened slowly. One missed dinner. One forgotten promise. One moment where his company became more important than the person who helped him build it. The next morning, Victoria packed a small suitcase and left the apartment they once called home. She did not take expensive jewelry. She did not take anything that could be used as a weapon against him in their divorce. She only took what belonged to her. A few clothes, some books, old photographs, and a small wooden box she had kept hidden for years. That box contained the part of her life Alex never knew. Inside were documents from the Bennett family, letters from her late grandmother, records connected to Bennett Global Holdings, a legacy worth billions that Victoria had never touched. Not because she could not, because she chose not to. Years ago, her father had told her something she never forgot. Money can tell you what people want. Time can show you who they really are. Victoria wanted to know who Alex really was. She wanted to know if he loved Victoria Bennett, the woman who cooked dinner in a small apartment, and supported his dreams, or if he loved the idea of becoming powerful beside someone important. Now she finally had her answer. Later that afternoon, Victoria met with Daniel Brooks, the family attorney who had protected the Bennett family for decades. He had known about her marriage but respected her choice to live quietly. When she entered his office, he looked at her carefully. "I am guessing the divorce was not what you hoped for." Victoria gave a small smile. "No, but maybe it was what I needed." Daniel placed a folder on the table. "Victoria, your father wanted you to take your place when you were ready. That time has come." She looked down at the documents, but did not open them immediately. "I do not want this because I am angry." Daniel nodded. "Good. Because the Bennett name was never meant to be used for revenge." Victoria finally opened the folder. For the first time in years, she saw the full picture of the world she had walked away from. A world of influence, responsibility, and power. But she also knew one thing. She did not want to become someone like Alex. She did not want power because someone underestimated her. She wanted power because she finally understood her own worth. Meanwhile, across the city, Alex Whitmore sat in his office believing he had made the smartest decision of his life. He had no idea the woman he left behind was preparing to step into a world he could never have imagined. And soon, everyone would learn that Victoria Bennett was not the person he thought he was leaving behind. Alex Whitmore believed the hardest part was over. The divorce was signed. The apartment was quiet. The distractions were gone. At least, that was what he told himself. Sitting behind his massive glass desk on the 42nd floor of Whitmore Technologies, Alex looked out over Manhattan and felt the same confidence he had felt after every major business victory. The city below moved quickly, but his world felt completely under control. His assistant placed a stack of reports on his desk. "The investors are impressed with the direction you are taking the company," she said. Alex nodded with a small smile. "Good. That is exactly what we need. Stability. Stability." That word had become important to him. In his mind, Victoria represented uncertainty. She represented a life that no longer matched the image he wanted to build. He convinced himself that leaving her was not cruel. It was necessary. He believed successful people had to make difficult choices. What he refused to admit was that Victoria had never been the thing holding him back. She was the person who supported him before anyone else believed in him. But Alex had forgotten the difference. A few days after the divorce papers were signed, Alex attended a private business event in downtown Manhattan. Executives, investors, and influential people filled the room. Everyone wanted to congratulate him on his next chapter. Standing beside him was Claire Lawson, a woman who represented the kind of image Alex thought belonged next to a CEO. She smiled for cameras, greeted investors, and knew exactly how to move through a room filled with powerful people. "You finally look happy," Claire said as they stepped away from the crowd. Alex looked around the room. "I feel like I can finally focus." Claire smiled. "Sometimes you have to let go of things that no longer fit your future." Alex agreed without hesitation. He wanted to believe that was true. He wanted to believe leaving Victoria was simply part of becoming a better version of himself. But while Alex was celebrating his new beginning, his company was beginning to face problems he did not see coming. The next morning, during a leadership meeting, one of his executives placed a report on the table. "We have a concern from several investors," the executive said carefully. Alex looked up. "What kind of concern?" "They are questioning the long-term strategy. They want reassurance about the company's stability." Alex leaned back in his chair. "That is normal. Every growing company faces pressure." But the executive hesitated. "There is something else. A few major investors have requested a review of recent decisions." Alex frowned. "Who requested it?" The executive looked down at the document. "Bennett Holdings." For a moment, the room became quiet. The name meant something. Everyone in the business world knew Bennett Holdings. It was one of the most respected private investment groups in the country. But Alex did not connect the name to Victoria. He could not, because the woman he thought he knew had never shown any sign of belonging to that world. Meanwhile, Victoria sat in a quiet conference room across town, listening to Daniel Brooks explain the situation. "Your name carries influence, Victoria, but your decisions will matter more than your wealth." She looked through the documents carefully. "I do not want to destroy Alex." Daniel studied her expression. "Then what do you want?" Victoria closed the folder. "I want him to finally understand that the person he underestimated was never powerless." That evening, Alex received a message from his assistant. A new meeting had been scheduled with Bennett Holdings. He read the name again, unaware that the person sitting across from him would soon change everything he thought he knew. Because the woman he walked away from was no longer standing quietly behind him. She was about to step into the spotlight he never imagined she belonged in. The morning of the Bennett Holdings meeting arrived, and Alex Whitmore walked into the conference room expecting another routine business discussion. He wore the same confidence that had carried him through years of negotiations, acquisitions, and investor meetings. To him, this was just another opportunity to prove he was still in control. He adjusted his suit jacket, glanced at the people waiting around the table, and took his seat. "Thank you for making time for us," Alex said. "I know Bennett Holdings is selective about the companies it works with." The executives exchanged polite smiles, but there was something different in the room. Something Alex could not understand. They were not looking at him like they were impressed. They were looking at him like they already knew something he did not. A few minutes later, the door opened. Victoria Bennett walked in. For a moment, Alex did not recognize her. Not because she looked completely different, but because she carried herself differently. The woman who had once sat quietly beside him at small dinners was now walking into the room with confidence and purpose. She was calm, focused, completely in control. Alex stood up slowly. "Victoria?" Her expression remained professional. "Good morning, Alex." The room became silent. Alex looked around, waiting for someone to explain what was happening. "You are here with Bennett Holdings?" he asked. Victoria took the seat at the head of the table. "Yes." Alex gave a small confused laugh. "I did not realize you worked with them." Daniel Brooks placed a folder in front of Alex. "Mr. Whitmore, allow me to introduce Victoria Bennett, Chairwoman of Bennett Global Holdings." The words seemed to echo. Chairwoman, Bennett Global Holdings. Alex stared at the folder without opening it. For the first time in years, he had no immediate response. The woman sitting across from him was the same woman he had shared a home with. The same woman who made coffee every morning. The same woman he believed had nothing beyond their simple life together. But he had never truly known her. "Why did you never tell me?" Alex finally asked. Victoria looked at him calmly. "Because I wanted to know if you loved me when you thought I was just Victoria." Her answer was quiet, but it carried more weight than anger ever could. Alex looked away. Memories started returning. The nights she stayed awake helping him prepare presentations. The moments she encouraged him when his company was struggling. The times she chose a simple life, even though she never had to. "I do not understand," he said. "You had all of this the entire time?" Victoria nodded slightly. "Yes." "Then why live the way we did?" Alex asked. "Why struggle when you did not have to?" Victoria looked at him. "Because I did not want our marriage to be built on money." That sentence stayed in the room. Alex had spent years chasing success because he thought success would make people value him. But now he was facing the truth. The one person who valued him before the world did had been the person he pushed away. The meeting continued, but everything had changed. Alex was no longer the powerful CEO entering a room full of investors. He was a man sitting across from the woman he underestimated. After the meeting ended, Alex waited near the elevator. "Victoria," he said softly. She stopped, but did not turn around immediately. "I need to understand something." She looked at him. "What?" Alex swallowed. "Was any part of our marriage real?" For a moment, Victoria looked hurt. Not because she wanted revenge, but because the question reminded her of everything she had lost. "For me, it was real," she said. "That was the problem. I was the only one still fighting for it." The elevator doors opened. Victoria stepped inside and left him standing there. Alex watched the doors close, realizing something he had never considered. He had spent years trying to build an empire, but he had already lost the one person who believed in him before he had anything to offer. Alex Whitmore spent the next several days trying to convince himself that seeing Victoria again had not affected him. He told himself it was just a surprise. Anyone would be shocked to discover that their former spouse was connected to one of the most powerful families in the country. But deep down, Alex knew that was not the reason he could not stop thinking about that meeting. It was not the money. It was not the company. It was the realization that he had spent 7 years beside someone and never truly saw her. Every memory felt different now. Every conversation had a new meaning. The woman he thought was ordinary had been quietly choosing a simple life, while carrying a secret that could have changed everything. One evening, Alex sat alone in his apartment, looking through old photos on his phone. There was one from their first year of marriage. Victoria was sitting on the floor of their old apartment, laughing while holding 2 cups of coffee. Alex remembered that day clearly. His company had just lost a major client. He was frustrated, convinced that everything he built was falling apart. Victoria had looked at him and said, "Alex, you are focused on what you lost. I am looking at what you are still building." At the time, those words gave him strength. Now they reminded him of what he had thrown away. The next morning, Alex went to the Bennett Holdings office. He did not arrive as a CEO, trying to negotiate. He arrived as a man looking for answers. Victoria was reviewing documents when he entered the room. She looked up calmly. "Alex, I know I probably should have called first," he said, "but I needed to talk to you." Victoria closed the folder in front of her. "About business?" Alex hesitated. "No, about us." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them carried years of things left unsaid. "Why did you hide this from me?" Alex asked. Victoria looked down briefly before answering. "Because I was afraid." Alex seemed surprised. "Afraid of what?" "That the moment you knew my family name, everything would change." She looked directly at him. "I wanted to know if you loved Victoria Bennett, not the Bennett name." Alex had no answer. Because he knew she was right. He remembered all the times he complained about their lifestyle. All the times he acted like she did not understand ambition. All the times he assumed she was simply comfortable staying behind him. "I thought you were not interested in the life I wanted," Alex said quietly. Victoria gave a small, disappointed smile. "No, Alex. I was interested. I just never wanted success to become the reason we stopped caring about each other." Her words were not angry. That made them harder to hear. Victoria was not trying to punish him. She was simply telling him the truth. Alex looked around the office. Everything about this place represented the world she had hidden from him. Power, influence, responsibility. But somehow, the most valuable thing she had ever given him was something money could not buy. Loyalty. "Can we fix this?" Alex finally asked. Victoria remained quiet for a moment. It was the question she once would have given anything to hear. Years ago, she would have answered immediately. She would have tried. She would have found a way. But she was not the same woman anymore. "Alex, I spent years trying to save something you already decided to leave." He looked down. "I know. And now that you know who I am, you want to understand what you lost." Alex did not argue. Because that was exactly what was happening. Victoria walked toward the window, looking over the city. The hardest part was never the divorce. She paused. It was realizing that the person I trusted most did not see me at all. Alex stood there silently, feeling the weight of every choice he had made. For the first time, he was not thinking about losing a powerful woman. He was thinking about losing the woman who loved him before anyone else cared about him. And somewhere in that moment, Alex understood that an apology would not be enough. Because some things could be forgiven, but they could never be undone. Alex Whitmore had spent years believing that losing control was the worst thing that could happen to him. In business, he built his reputation on making decisions quickly, staying confident under pressure, and never showing uncertainty. But now, for the first time in his life, he was facing something he could not solve with a contract, a strategy meeting, or a carefully prepared presentation. He had lost Victoria, and no amount of success could change that. Meanwhile, Victoria Bennett was stepping into a role she had avoided for years. As chairwoman of Bennett Global Holdings, she was no longer hiding behind a quiet lifestyle. Every decision she made affected thousands of employees and countless families. But unlike Alex, Victoria did not see power as a way to prove she was better than someone else. She saw it as a responsibility. During a meeting with Daniel Brooks, she reviewed the latest reports regarding Whitmore Technologies. "The company is struggling, but it is not beyond saving," Daniel explained. Victoria looked carefully at the numbers. How much of this came from poor decisions? Daniel paused. A lot of it came from rapid expansion without enough preparation. Alex pushed for growth before building a stable foundation. Victoria sighed softly. She knew Alex. She knew his ambition. She knew his biggest strength was also his biggest weakness. He always wanted to reach the next level before appreciating where he already was. "I do not want him destroyed," Victoria said. Daniel nodded. "I know. Then why are we reviewing this?" he asked. Victoria looked out the window of her office. "Because someone needs to stop him from making the same mistake again." For the first time, her decision was not about revenge. It was about protecting people who depended on the company. But Alex did not see it that way yet. Inside Whitmore Technologies, pressure was building. Another investor meeting ended with difficult questions. The board wanted answers. Employees wanted reassurance. The confidence Alex once carried so easily was beginning to disappear. After the meeting, Alex returned to his office and found Claire waiting for him. "You look stressed," she said. Alex placed his briefcase down. "The company is dealing with some challenges." Claire looked concerned. "Can you fix it?" The question was simple, but it bothered him. Because for years, people had assumed Alex could fix anything. He was the CEO, the decision-maker, the person everyone trusted. But now, he was realizing that confidence alone could not solve every problem. "I will handle it," he replied. But even he could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Later that evening, Alex received a message about an upcoming emergency board meeting. The main topic was the future of the company, and one name appeared on the list of participants: Victoria Bennett. He stared at the screen for several seconds. The woman he once thought needed him was now sitting in a position where his entire future could depend on her decision. The next day, Alex walked into the boardroom and saw Victoria sitting across from him. The room was filled with executives watching quietly. Years ago, Alex would have expected Victoria to sit beside him. Today, she sat on the opposite side of the table. "Thank you for joining us, Mr. Whitmore," Victoria said professionally. Not cold, not cruel, just different. Alex understood that difference immediately. The woman in front of him was no longer waiting for him to choose her. She had already chosen herself. "Victoria," Alex said quietly, "I know things between us are complicated." She looked at him calmly. "This meeting is about the company, Alex." Those words affected him more than he expected, because once, she had built her world around him. Now, she was simply doing her job. And for the first time, Alex realized the greatest consequence of his decision was not losing her wealth or her influence. It was losing the one person who used to stand beside him without asking for anything in return. The boardroom had never felt so quiet to Alex Whitmore. For years, he had been the person sitting at the end of the table, leading discussions, making decisions, and telling others what direction the company would take. But today was different. Today, the person everyone was waiting to hear from was Victoria Bennett. The same woman he once believed was simply the person standing behind his success was now the person holding the future of his company in her hands. Victoria opened the meeting with a calm voice. "We are not here to discuss personal matters. We are here to discuss the future of Whitmore Technologies." Alex looked at her carefully. There was no anger in her expression, no desire to embarrass him. That almost made it harder. He had expected bitterness. He had expected her to remind everyone of what he had done. But Victoria did not need to. She had moved beyond that. Daniel Brooks presented the company review. The problems were clear. Poor expansion decisions. Unnecessary risks. A leadership style that focused too much on rapid growth and not enough on long-term stability. Alex listened quietly. Every point felt familiar because he knew the person behind those decisions. He knew exactly who had made them. Himself. One of the board members looked toward Victoria. "Ms. Bennett, your firm has the resources to restructure this company. The question is whether you are willing to do so." The room waited for her answer. Victoria looked at Alex for a brief moment before speaking. "Yes, Bennett Holdings is willing to support Whitmore Technologies." Alex looked surprised. He expected anything except that. "You are willing to help?" he asked after the meeting ended. Victoria gathered her documents. "I am willing to protect the company and the people who depend on it." Alex nodded slowly. "Even after everything?" Victoria looked at him. "This is not about what happened between us." Her voice softened slightly. "That is the difference between us, Alex. You always thought every decision was about winning or losing. Sometimes it is just about doing what is right." Her words stayed with him after she left. Later that evening, Alex sat alone in his office. The city lights outside looked exactly the same as they had before, but everything felt different. He opened an old drawer and found a handwritten note from Victoria that she had left years ago when he launched his first major product. It simply said, "I believe in you. Do not forget why you started." He held the paper quietly. She had believed in him before the awards, before the success, before anyone cared. And he had been so focused on becoming someone important that he forgot the person who believed he was already enough. Meanwhile, Claire began noticing the changes in Alex. The confidence she admired was fading. The attention from investors was no longer constant. The lifestyle she imagined was becoming uncertain. "Alex, what happens if things do not go back to the way they were?" she asked one evening. He looked at her, but did not have an answer. Because for the first time, he understood something painful. Some people are attracted to the version of you that succeeds. Very few stay when that image begins to disappear. The next morning, Alex made a decision. He knew he could not erase the past. He could not undo the divorce papers. He could not pretend he had not hurt Victoria. But he could finally do the one thing he avoided for years. Take responsibility. He requested a private meeting with Victoria. When she arrived, Alex stood up. For once, there was no CEO in the room. No title. No image. Just a man facing the consequences of his choices. Victoria, he said quietly, I owe you an apology. Not just for the divorce. For every moment I made you feel like you were less important than my success. Victoria listened without interrupting. And Alex realized that saying sorry was easy. The difficult part was accepting that forgiveness did not mean he would get everything back. 6 months later, the name Whitmore Technologies was no longer mentioned as a company in crisis. It was mentioned as a company that had changed. Under the guidance of Bennett Holdings, the business found stability again. But the biggest change was not found in financial reports or investor meetings. It was found in the people who worked there. Alex Whitmore had learned something he never understood before. A successful leader was not the person who always looked strong. It was the person who was willing to admit when they were wrong. The old Alex would have considered that weakness. The new Alex understood it was growth. He no longer walked into meetings trying to prove he was the smartest person in the room. He listened. He asked questions. He valued the people around him. And every time he made a difficult decision, he remembered the person who taught him the importance of staying grounded. Victoria Bennett continued building her own legacy. She expanded Bennett Global Holdings, but she also created programs that supported young entrepreneurs who had ideas but lacked opportunities. She often spoke at business events, not about wealth or power, but about purpose. During one interview, a reporter asked her, "After everything you went through, do you think success changed you?" Victoria smiled softly. "No. Success showed me who I was all along." Those words represented everything she had learned. For years, she believed she needed to prove her value to someone else. To her husband. To the business world. To people who underestimated her. But the truth was simple. Her value had never depended on whether someone recognized it. One afternoon, Alex and Victoria met for coffee. Not in a fancy restaurant. Not at a business event. Just a quiet cafe they used to visit years ago when life was simpler. Alex looked around and smiled. "I forgot how much I missed this place." Victoria smiled back. "You were always too busy chasing the next thing." He nodded. "I was." There was a comfortable silence between them. Not the painful silence from before. A different kind. One filled with acceptance. "I want you to know something," Alex said. "I do not expect anything from you. I know I lost the right to ask for that." Victoria looked at him. "Thank you for understanding that." Alex took a breath. "But I am grateful that you helped me see the person I became." Victoria looked out the window for a moment. Sometimes people come into our lives to teach us something. Sometimes they stay. Sometimes they do not. Alex nodded slowly. He finally understood. Loving someone meant seeing them. Not just what they could do for you. Not just how they could support your dreams. But who they truly were. Victoria left that cafe knowing she had found something more important than revenge. She had found peace. She had rebuilt herself without needing anyone to admit they were wrong. She did not need Alex to regret losing her in order to know she was valuable. And Alex carried his own lesson forward. The hardest losses in life are not always the things we can replace. Sometimes, they are the people who believed in us before we became successful, before we had anything to offer, and before the world knew our name. Alex once thought he was leaving behind an ordinary life. He never realized he was walking away from the woman who had always seen his potential, even when he could not see it himself. And Victoria Bennett proved something that many people spend a lifetime learning. The people who underestimate you do not decide your worth. Your worth was there long before they noticed it. Sometimes the greatest comeback is not making someone regret losing you. Sometimes the greatest comeback is becoming so complete that you no longer need their regret at all.